Hello, welcome to McKinnis Family Farm. My name is Robert McKinnis. Today we're going to be talking about sleds like this one right here that we have stored in our woodshed. Now the word sled comes from a Middle English word and a Middle Dutch word meaning sliding or slider. And that's pretty much what they are designed to do, to slide across the ground and reduce friction so you can move heavier objects. So usually we'll make them entirely out of wood, like this one is here. Usually we use a lighter and a strong wood like ash, but you also find them times made out of oak, and you also will find them made in a combination with metal. And when you design a sled, you design it to slide on either a flat and smooth bottom, or you design it to have these long ski-like things on the bottom that we call runners. So sleds are actually very old. They date back for thousands and thousands of years, and they're one of our earliest transport vehicles. Pretty much any single culture you go across the globe are going to have some type of form of sled so they can move people or a heavy object. And they were their main transport vehicle until the invention of the wheel and axle. And when the wheel and axle came around, it became the main transport vehicle, but the sled still was around to be used in situations where the wheel and axle failed or struggled in. And then when you think about sleds, you usually think about this time of year, a winter wonderland full of snow and ice. However, we can actually use a sled all year round. In particular, we'll use them when we have very wet and muddy conditions in our fields or on our roads. Here in Northwest Ohio, that's pretty much every spring or anytime when the Blanchard River floods over here, and they work really, really well. They'll also work well in other situations, and you can even use them on bare grounds. You just have to either lubricate the runners first or get them wet so they can go across the ground if you're just using it on the bare ground. However, in that situation, it's usually easier to go and use a wheel and axle instead. So our sleds can pretty much be split into three different categories. We have our traditional sleds, our sledge, and then our sleighs. A sled is usually going to be referring to a small sled that's going to be primarily used for recreation or for transporting people. A sledge are usually going to be a little bit larger, a little bit more heavier duty to transport freight or a heavy object. And a sleigh is going to be a moderate to a large sled, going to be used and be pulled by either an animal like a horse, a dog, oxen, or reindeer. Here on the farm, we will find about two different types of sleighs. One is going to be a box sleigh, which is a large box-like wagon with two long runners. Or the other type of sleigh you will find is called a bobsleigh, which is used by converting a wagon by taking off the wheels and adding a pair of two short runners that we call bobs. And both of those really work well to doing farm work around here in the farm, or going to go see our neighbors, or going into town. But when you go into town, you're going to find different types of sleigh. They're going to be a little bit more ornate and a little bit smaller, and they're going to be your cutter sleighs and your city sleighs, designed to carry just people. So our little sled right here, we can call it a sled. We do use it for recreation. When me and my siblings were younger, we'd take the sled and we'd go around the farm pulling each other, or we'll go and find a nice hill to go sliding down it. Back when we used to have oxen here on the farm, we actually used the sled to help train our young oxen to work together as a team. It was also a fun way to get pulled around in the sled too. Nowadays, we use this sled as more of a sledge, and we'll use it to carry heavy objects around the farm, mostly during the early spring when we do maple sugaring. Usually we'll take our sled and then we'll load it up with barrels such as this one. This is one of our smaller ones. We got much bigger ones too. And we'll take our barrels, we'll take all of our equipment, and we'll drag it all the way out in the woods so we can start the maple sugaring process. We'll take our barrels and we'll go from tree to tree and then take them to our processing fire so we can reduce the sap down to syrup. Then once we get that syrup, we'll actually put it back in the barrels, and then we'll haul it from the woods all the way back up to the house so it can be further refined down into our maple sugar. So if you do want to see our little sled or sled in action, come out here in the early spring when we're doing our maple sugaring. It's a nice snowy day like today. I hope that there's enough snow that you can take your own sled out and have some fun. And we'll see you next time on the farm.